Welcome to the Market Mindset. We are the hub for news, results, and CEO interviews focusing the junior commodities sector. We provide market analysis and perspective that will help position you for solid returns. If that sounds like something you're interested in, you can help support us by liking this video, subscribing to our channel, and clicking the notification bell. For more info, you can visit our website. All links are in the description below. Now let's get into today's video.
Happy Wednesday, everyone. Welcome to the Market Mindset. Today's a little special show. Austin and I wanted to jump on and continue the discussion and talk about sectors and markets and whatnot, just to keep in touch with everyone and not necessarily speak about the chaos out there, all the negativity, which there is, it's not hard to find a lot, and try to stay away from that to really focus in on what the long-term objective that we see here for what we're undertaking, but also what the long-term market is going to look like. And I think lithium is a good place to start because we've seen a big pullback in it as well. Like everything's down, but I wanted to kind of touch on this and not to have too critical a discussion on it. But we had Goldman Sachs come out with a negative kind of sentiment in regards to lithium. I mean, the lithium price as a commodity price was exceptionally high. Even we would talk about that Elon Musk was complaining that he'd never pay that price. So they came out with a report, and I think Austin will talk a bit about it, and then we'll get some feedback as from some of the other like specialty groups. And by far, make no mistake, Goldman is a major player, obviously, but they're not known for mining. They're not known in this space. They're not. It's not really their bread and butter. By any stretch, but Austin, bring up this what you saw and what they were talking about.
Yeah, so it's an interesting kind of headline that would catch your attention, saying Goldman sparks bear bull battle in the lithium market, and at first you kind of go bull market in lithium. That really doesn't make a ton of sense when you consider the factors that we would look at normally, and then it kind of goes on to say, is the lithium market about to be doused in a cold cyclical shower of oversupply? And that really makes you think, okay, what kind of oversupply are they talking about here? What exactly are they looking at this from? Because the angle that you and I would typically take when we approach this is, how much is your domestic supply? Let's use the United States as an example because we frequently do. What does your domestic supply look like? And you could, under no circumstances, when you take the supply that the United States has access to and the demand level of companies based out of the United States for lithium, the word oversupply doesn't really apply.
There's one mine.
It doesn't make a ton of sense. So you have to kind of look at, all right, what are they actually talking about? And as you start to go through the article, and I know this was something you kind of looked at as well, well, they're factoring in a lot of external factors that are not really actually affecting the lithium market itself.
Absolutely. And I mean, the key factor and takeaway from that, and there's lots of what ifs, but the main thing is you have to remember Goldman Sachs is a globalist entity. If you even work there, you have that it's part of your training. You're a globalist. That's what you're going to be. You see the world in a very specific way. Their whole report really hinges on China. So it's that life will go on and China's still going to be the main supplier of all these metals and whatnot. And I think that's wishful thinking. I think everyone, of course, wants trade because trade keeps wars from happening and keeps things. But that's not the shift that's been happening right now. That model, that's gone. Like that's not coming back anytime soon. Whether you want to blame it on Russia or not is one thing. And to be perfectly honest, I'm in much more favor of countries taking more supply and also responsibility for themselves, not relying on foreign powers. Like you should be able to take care of your own people, whether it be food, energy. I mean, you have to have something and it's reliable. And let's be honest here. Russia actually came out of left wing a little bit, as far as the reliability and then coming in and attacking Ukraine. But there's nothing reliable about an authoritarian communist nation. So China is not someone that, other than keeping things happy and like equilibrium and not onerous or not argumentative. That's probably a good thing. But
Yeah.
their whole basis comes off of that. It comes off of China supply, China demand, and that's not enough. And that you can't base.
No.
But you also have to remember who Goldman Sachs clients are. They're not writing for retail investors. They're not writing for miners. They don't work with them. So, it's like any news. If you watch CNN, you get a perspective. If you watch Fox, you have a perspective. Al Jazeera, RT, you're going to get different perspectives. And you have to know who their target market is, who their niche audience is, who they're speaking to, and what their goals and aims are in the markets that they're interested in. So, needless to say, they had one could argue, a very harsh impact, not only on the lithium price, which has come back down. I mean, it was up 500% or something. So it was up exceptionally high. But on especially, lithium producers and, of course, the juniors as well, because them saying that there's not as much supply required also is misleading, like you said, because there is a massive need for lithium in the West. Massive. So to just think that it's just going to come from China, end of story, is naive to say the least.
No, it totally is. And that goes into kind of another article that we had taken a look at from Benchmark Minerals that makes the case that capacity is not going to equal your supply. And particularly when you're looking at China, that you need to separate the design capacity and the, what could be there from their actual effective capacity. And another thing you have to take into account is that even if you're opening a new lithium production facility, until you kind of prove it out and it's certified, it's a process that can take anywhere from 6 to 8 months. And the 6-month side of things is where you're using something that we've talked a lot in the past, more like the direct lithium extraction sort of thing, rather than, what the kind of normal procedure is for a lot of these lithium facilities.
Yeah, and actually I've got a quote here from a Canaccord mining analyst, Reg Spencer, and he said, listen, the Goldman Sachs report is taken out of context. And quote unquote, that oversupply in the market that Goldman Sachs is referring to is in lithium production from China lepidolite sources, which is lower grade, difficult to process, and more expensive to process in comparison to spodumene. So right there, we know we're talking about different types of product and also lesser grade. So both those things are bigger issues, and it's like they kind of liken it to, it's not just getting gold out of the ground where, gold is gold. When you're dealing with like nickel, class 1 nickel is different than the second. You need the class 1 for batteries. So applying it across the board doesn't work. You need to have the right type of stuff. Same with graphite. You need the right graphite to go into electric vehicles. So,
well, you even talked about it last week with Ariane phosphate. Similar situation, right? That they needed to prove up that they have the high grade phosphate that they're able to use in those batteries as well. So it's you have to look at it a little bit more critically when it comes to these type of minerals.
And also, they might be suggesting that the short-term supply is going to slow down. Well, okay, I would argue that's probably true because we're in a recession, we're in tough times. The supply chain is totally screwed. China is responsible for making half the stuff that we need and want, and then they're going to ship it over in a rough supply chain, massively overpriced. Shipping costs are through the roof. So, right now, I would say that short term things aren't looking that great. But once again, we look at things in a very different capacity because if you're talking mining as well, you just don't turn on the gas pumps. You can't just go back into an oil field, open it up, and get it going again, or it just flows. You need to find a resource, which is difficult enough, and then get it up to capacity. And that takes years. The permitting, the building out. Now, granted, if it's a brine or if it's a direct lithium extraction type of thing, or clay, one could argue that's a bit faster than a hard rock one. But these are all factors that one needs to take into account. And almost every other firm out there, like almost every single other one, whether it's Bain or McKinsey or Benchmark Minerals and very specific mining company consultancy groups and whatnot, took exception to this. Let's just say that way, because the clear path, if you believe that that they're wishing to do this green kind of movement and everything else, lithium is a critical. It isn't going to be the only thing. So that's the other thing to keep in mind. We don't want to get too carried away. When you're dealing with, say, the West and North America and Europe, there's probably going to be a mixture of hydrogen. So there'll be a hydrogen solution. There'll be obviously a requirement and need for nuclear and uranium. There is the batteries side which is lithium, but even that, as we know, there's lithium with nickel, there's lithium with iron, the lithium iron phosphate. Like, so there's different solutions for different battery life, the amount of power you'd need. So there's going to be a combination of all these things, and that's whenever the nuance or the I guess delving underneath the layers gets a bit more complicated for people to know that it isn't just one solution. There's lots of solutions that need to come to bear right now. Even when things are tough, right now behind the scenes, there should be an injection of capital. This is my kind of picture, from governments, from corporations, to get resources for the West now. Like, you should be drilling holes right now, which companies are, but I mean on a massive scale, so that you make sure that you have your supply of copper, of lithium, of nickel, all the battery energy metals that you need. On top of that, I mean, arguably gold. I mean, it is in some industrial use, but there's a reason why Russia and China have been storing gold for years. They're the number one buyer for the last 4 or 5 years. That should, cause concern to people as well when they see what's been happening in the political spotlight.
Well, and especially now when you see China and Russia and India are floating this idea of having their own reserve currency as well. That's a whole nother topic and a whole different conversation. But it goes to reinforce the idea that we need to be securing a supply on our own end for a lot more reasons than just the obvious, we need to make more electric batteries and stuff. And also, you made a great point there of not being married to just one solution. We got to have multiple different solutions. There's a number of different ways you can make this work. So we need to be trying to do all of them rather than, okay, let's just stick to one and hope for the best with that one, because it might be as effective as you think it could be, or you might need a little bit extra on top of it to be able to hit the capacity and hit these, frankly, outrageous quota numbers that they have for all these targets for 2030 and 2050, et cetera.
Well, I mean, that's the other thing too, is, I mean, to try to hit any of these, and I hate using the term like net zero. It's ridiculous. Like, you can't zero something. It's not going to happen. It's like COVID zero. Like, if you want to like go into total non-scientific talk, that's when you start using terms like that. I mean, anyways, that's my pet peeve. But if we want to be serious about this, then there has to be a big push to do it. And we're still not seeing it. And what we're seeing, though, is oil and gas is going to continue having a great time. And I even saw today that Justin has, possibly opened the door to opening some supply. That's a separate conversation we'll have. We'll probably write that in our blog as well. You can check that in there later. But we need to be focused and paying attention to now, with a lot of these lithium producers that have been just kind of pushed down, and there's lots of factors. And one of the things that was interesting is that the direct lithium extraction, people have questioned whether or not that works or not. I've looked at Lilac. They are very confident in it working, which bodes well for companies like E3 Metals and for Lithium Bank. But then again, E3 Metals just came out with a partnership with Imperial, which moved the stock quite a bit. And they're announcing that there's a lot of success they're having with their patent on their absorption technique to get the lithium out. So there's lots of promising news, and believe me, you'd be hard pressed to find any group out there with a long-term forecast for the absolute need for all these metals, minerals, and everything else. It's shocking how little we have if you really want to even attempt to do this thing. So to pretend, I think the Goldman Sachs thing, you can take it in a lot of different ways, and they may be just playing. They do this often. Yeah. They may just want the price down lower. That's it.
Right.
Like Elon Musk complained and basically was like, I'm not paying that for the price. And if you make the price too high, I mean, there's always a sweet spot. Then they're just not going to buy it. Yeah. And they go directly, and Elon has a partnership with a mining company. So you have to always kind of see, even from an analyst point of view, what's their motivation when they put out reports.
Yeah. And it is, for me, my opinion on it is it feels disingenuous to kind of, if you're supposed to be informing people, let's say that, which we know that's not the purpose of what they're doing, but let's pretend like that might be. it's pretty disingenuous to not point out a lot of the facts that like these other firms like a Benchmark Minerals have stepped up and said, you got to think about it this way. We can't be relying on a feedstock from China essentially to support all of us. That's just not what's going to happen. Not only is that not a way that we want to be operating, and in a sense of being dependent, it's not something China is going to do. China's not going to automatically just give up all their supply and say, "Oh yeah, here you go, Elon. We'll help you out." Not if they do that, they're doing it for very specific reasons, and I guarantee you it would be not reasons that we would be very happy with seeing. It's because they're going to be building a lot more Teslas in China than they are in Texas right now. Would be the reasoning behind that.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. When you're talking like global business and you're looking at big name companies, I mean, obviously you want to be able to penetrate like India and China because just sheer population base. I mean, I get it. There's a lot of profit there that can be had. But I don't see the market. I don't see those being, as open and as friendly and as flowy as they were when we see how fast that they're separating. And I fully suspect this globalist model, thankfully, is deteriorating at a rapid pace. And that doesn't mean that we want any like conflict over anything, but people, countries should be doing what they do. They are countries taking care of their people, putting their needs and desires first, and being able to feed them, clothe them, take care of them, and not require another nation to do that. And that's the part that we've kind of fell into in the West. Right from our education system, that this model that they've been teaching that is very erroneous, which we won't even go down as well. I'll leave that there, but let's focus more on the lithium. There's an opportunity out there, and I'm not saying it's today. There's lots of negative out there. Like let's be honest. But the thing we want to kind of remind people on is that your mindset is the most important thing right now. The markets are going to do what they're going to do. There's larger bigger powers at play right now, calling the shots. But if you do believe that they want this future, there's going to be a transition period. So there's tons of money to be made in oil and gas and in energy. Those companies too, a lot of oil and gas companies, they are the leaders in green technology and green investment. So make no mistake that there's a disconnect too in the mainstream news and that kind of side of things. But
especially if they're in Canada,
especially Canada.
Yeah.
So let's just try to remember what it is that we're trying to achieve. And I was kind of liking people to think in 5 years, if they're part of this movement to become green and to have this type of thing, the best thing to do is to get in the markets, to invest your money, to put your heart and effort and money into that. That's the number one way. The markets and ingenuity and people out there that are very smart, they can sort these things out if they're funded properly. That's the main focus.
Yeah, it is for sure. And it's important to remember that and stay locked in on that and understanding how critical the capacity that we need to have is and how important it is to boost that up. And like you said, not be reliant on external powers for things that we need to kind of move things forward in the right direction. Yeah.
So we see, there's, obviously in great chaos, there's huge opportunity. The timing of all this stuff, I mean, it's up in the air. I mean, I'm not expecting a lot of joyous news in the markets over the summer, to be honest. There's some stocks that we're very excited about in the short term that, have already said that they'll have plants up and running. They'll be in production. There's going to be, lots of things to hope for, but even that will be met coolly because market sentiment is so low. So I think when the Goldman report came out, kind of trying to put a halt on some of the battery energy story, that also may have just been to slow down the economy. That might just be just let's slow everything down a little bit. And it certainly had an effect.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, well, that's the thing as well. When someone, let's say it's not a someone, but then an entity like Goldman Sachs speaks on something like this, it's going to cause a reaction regardless. No matter how many sensible mining analysts can sit there and say, no, you know what, they don't have this right. Doesn't matter when it's the same as you may not like it, But when CNN speaks on something, that's going to have an impact on people. It's much less now than it was even 5 years ago, because people are realizing kind of the tactics that they use and the way they do things. Yeah. But when it's an entity this large that makes a point on something, it's going to have an effect one way or another. That's just unavoidable.
Yes, and they used to have a credibility factor, and Goldman has a massive credibility factor. I mean, we quote them all the time. They do great, important work. I mean, we know a lot of people don't like them because they're a globalist firm. They're kind of venture or vulture capitalist, one could argue. They don't have a lot of friends in the retail world out there because they were part of the issue in 2008. But that's their job. They're predatory capitalists, and that's what they do. And if you just view them in that way, that's a good thing. But like you said, them talking about anything will have an impact, rather than if you actually find the firms and the consultant groups and what that specialize and focus on these markets. They kind of get overlooked because you think, Merrill Lynch said this, Goldman said that, JP Morgan, because they're the largest investment banks out there. They've got the biggest spotlight to shine. But we wanted to bring it up because, once again, we want to encourage the conversation. Right now is a great time for all of these discussions because, the market's tough. It's tough. Sentiment's at its all-time low. And that's even coming from a JP Morgan report. We hear it all the time. There's not a lot of action in certainly the junior markets, but people would argue, it's not being contrarian, that whenever it hits that peak, and who knows when that is, things can explode on the upside. They certainly can. So, and we're not suggesting that's going to happen anytime soon. There's lots of negative out there, but as long as you're doing the things today, each day, to keep on top, to show some interest and go, yeah, you know what? I see this long-term trend, and remind yourself, why am I invested in, a helium company? Why am I invested in this? And if you touch base with us when we have a conversation with people, just like I get to talk to CEOs and presidents all the time, it reaffirms what the goal is. And we kind of sit at ease because a lot of this stuff isn't out in the mainstream news. They're not talking about what builds this future that all of us kind of want.
Yeah, it's not something that you're going to be able to find unless you're looking for it. But that's the important thing, is to be looking for these things and following these trends and trying to spot these opportunities, because like you said, we're obviously not ever going to be able to time the market. And I certainly think I agree with you as far as this summer's, it's going to be a tougher market for at least the summer. But when this thing does kind of turn back around, it's going to really go. And that's going to be a very exciting time. But you know what? Well, I think we'll wrap this up here for today. We're still going to do a show on Friday, even though it's a holiday. So we'll still do our normal Friday show. We'll jump on. We'll have a few points to make. Maybe I'll even let you talk about Trudeau and his expanding oil capacity, and we'll touch on that a little bit. Well, we'll see.
Maybe we'll just make a mention of one or two things, but it'll be mostly just to celebrate Canada Day and the 4th of July, and remind people that there's more to life than all of this other stuff as well. And our mental health and our spirit and our energy is as important as anything else, to make sure that we can focus on the positive things ahead.
Yep, absolutely. And just a little teaser as well. If you're in the Calgary area during the Stampede, we will be having a little event. We've got some more news on that coming later this week. We'll probably talk about it a little bit on Friday as well. But stay tuned for more details on that. Andrew's going to be out here for a couple of days during Stampede. We're going to have a little mixer, a little chance to come down, chat with us, chat with some other people that we're doing some work with as well. We're really excited for that.
Yes, thank you. Yes, we'd love to see you. So reach out to us.
All right. Take care, guys. We'll chat to you on Friday.